This book made me feel scared, sad. I didn't expect to relate to a story of a teenage girl, but somehow I did. Let me tell you why.
Carrie stood dumbly in the center of a forming circle, water rolling from her skin in beads. She stood like a patient ox, aware that the joke was on her as always, dumbly embarrassed but unsurprised. Sue felt welling disgust as the first dark drops of menstrual blood struck the tile in dime-sized drops.
For God's sake, Carrie! You got your period! Clean yourself up!
Oh, huh?
She looked around bovinely, her hair stuck to her cheeks in a curving helmet shape. There was a cluster of acne on one shoulder. At 16, the elusive stamp of hurt was already marked clearly in her eyes.
She thinks they're for lipstick!
Ruth Gogan suddenly shouted with cryptic glee and then burst into a shriek of laughter. Sue remembered the comment later and fitted it into a general picture, but now it was only another senseless sound in the confusion. 16, she was thinking. She must know what's happening, More droplets of blood. Carrie still blinked around at her classmates in slow bewilderment.
Hey, I'm Felipe, and this is not just a review of Carrie by Stephen King. This is a confession, a memory, and a lesson I didn't expect to find in a horror novel. Before I tell you what I thought about the book, let me share how this book actually found me. I've only been a serious reader for about 3 years. Before that, literature wasn't really my thing. Until one day, looking for something that would actually scare me, I stumbled upon Misery. Yup, that novel. The one with the sadistic nurse and the writer Paul Sheldon. That was my first Stephen King book. And after that, I was hooked. But it wasn't until about a year ago that I decided to read all of King's work in chronological order. And that's how I ended up with Carrie. I'll confess something. I didn't expect to end up feeling sorry for a girl who... But that's King for you. He makes you empathize.
Even with monsters.
And now let me tell you what this book is about. Carrie White is an invisible teenager. She lives under the rule of her mother, Margaret, a religious fanatic who thinks everything is a sin.
Private Damon. You sinner! You're all sinners!
At school, Carrie is relentlessly bullied until one day she discovers she has... The problem, human cruelty can be far worse than any supernatural power. Imagine holding all that hatred inside and suddenly having the power to unleash it 1,000-fold. That's scary. Now here's what I loved the most about this book. First off, Margaret White. Wow! King gives us probably the most toxic mother in all of literature. She's not a supernatural monster. No claws, no fangs. Her religious obsession is the real horror. And the worst part is, we all know someone like that. But what really hit me was the bullying. King doesn't just describe it, he makes you feel it. And the prom scene, even if you've seen the movie, the book makes it so much more intense. There was one scene in particular that really shook me. Let me explain why. That shower scene is brutal. The book makes it feel 10 times more intense than the movie. And then there's the structure. It's wild. Newspaper articles, scientific reports, testimonies. King plays with narrative form like no one else at the time. It's like watching a true crime documentary about a real tragedy. Of course, not everything was perfect. Here's what didn't work for me. Just when I start connecting with Carrie, when I finally get her pain and rage, boom, it ends too fast. It's like King rushed to the ending. The bullies feel a bit too cartoonish, just evil for evil's sake. There's none of the complexity we'd later see in books like The Stand or It. And the ending, without spoiling anything, I just felt like, wait, that's it? After so much build-up, I expected something more epic. But beyond the story, this is what this book really taught me. First, it's the perfect gateway into the world of Stephen King. It's not as long as It or The Stand, but it already contains everything that makes King great. Larger-than-life characters, horror born from everyday life, and that way of planting a disturbing idea in your head and not letting go. Second, it's not just a horror story. Sure, there's the literal bloodbath, but At its core, this is a story about the pain of being different, about how cruelty can break someone, and what happens when that someone decides to break the world instead. It's heartbreaking, but it also makes you think, what would I do in her place? And finally, this is King in the rawest form. Here you see the writer before he became a legend, writing with anger and passion that he would later refine in his masterpieces. It's like listening to your favorite band's first album. Maybe it's not the most polished, but it has an energy nothing else can match. So here are my final thoughts. In the end, Carrie is much more than blood and telekinesis. It's a mirror King holds up to show us the worst of our society. The suffocating fanaticism, the cruelty of exclusion, and that spark of humanity we all carry inside. The one that sometimes, just sometimes, explodes. It's wild to think this is only the beginning, that after Carrie would come The Shining, It, The Stand, Salem's Lot. But there's something special about this debut novel. Something raw, honest, like a teenage scream that still echoes 50 years later. Do you think Carrie was a victim or a villain? Was her fate inevitable, or could someone have saved her? Drop your theories in the comments, and if you want more deep dives into King's books, hit that subscribe button. Next time we'll talk about, well, no spoilers. Let's just say more horror, more human psychology, and more of those stories that keep you up at night. Bye.